So let's talk about something that people love to judge but barely understand. Leaving a toxic relationship as a stay-at-home mom. Because people love to say, just leave. But when you don't have any income, when there are children involved, and when your whole life is tied into this person, leaving is not that simple. And if you're new here, my name is Rhonda. I'm a survival strategist, and I teach women how to rebuild their life after chaos. So let's start with the truth. Women do not stay in toxic relationships because they want to be there. Contrary to what other people believe, they actually don't want to be there. They stay in toxic relationships because they have a fear of what life is going to look like on the other side of that. No one has taught them how to stabilize their life. No one has taught them what it looks like to survive while other people are depending on you. So they stay out of fear. But if you're a stay-at-home mom, you already know that the real fear is not in you leaving that relationship. It's on what happens once I leave this relationship. So today we're going to talk about the truth about leaving toxic relationships as a stay-at-home mom. There are real challenges that women face when their survival is tied to the person that is hurting them. The decision to leave isn't an emotional decision. It absolutely feels like an impossible decision. It feels impossible to leave the situation when your survival is tied to the person that is hurting you. Because then you have to start asking yourself questions like, where are we going to live? How am I going to feed them? And how am I going to make money when my whole life, the last couple of years of my life, has been tied to me raising my children? And that doesn't make you weak. That makes you responsible because you understand that this isn't just about you. This is about you and your children. So sometimes staying in those situations feels like the more responsible thing to do because at least you know they'll be fed. At least you know you'll have a roof over your head. And so you stay in those places. But here's the part that people don't talk about. Staying in chaos doesn't protect your kids. It teaches them how to live in chaos, and it teaches them what chaos looks like. And I remember the moment that it hit me. It wasn't the disrespect. It wasn't the cheating. It wasn't the arguments. It wasn't even the feeling of loneliness laying next to somebody who said that they loved me. It was the moment I realized that my children were watching. They were watching how he talked to me. They were watching how he disrespected me. They were watching how much I was tolerating. It was that moment that I said something has got to change. My children were learning. They were learning what love looks like. They were learning what respect looks like. They were learning what a woman should tolerate. And I had to sit with myself and ask myself a very uncomfortable question. What version of love am I teaching my children right now? What are my children learning about love in this moment? And that's when I realized something very important. That leaving without a plan was not something that I could risk. It wasn't something that I could do because when women leave without having a plan, they typically go back. And not because they want to, but because at some point, survival is going to kick in. Bills have to be paid. Children have to be fed. And life is going to move on. And when you don't know how you're going to survive, you stay in places that you've already outgrown. So if you're a stay-at-home mom and you know that you need to leave this toxic situation, there are 3 things that I want you to start focusing on right now. First one being, start creating small financial independence. I'm not talking about getting rich overnight. I'm talking about little things that you can do to try to bring in some sort of income for yourself. At least try to do these things while your kids are at school or while they are occupied. You can do DoorDash, you can do Uber, you can do Instacart, you could be a nanny, you can be a substitute teacher. There are several small things that you can start doing to plan for your income when you get ready to leave. Don't try to cram so many things in at one time. Focus on one thing that you can do to try to bring some income in for yourself. Second thing I want you to do, start gathering important documents. I'm talking about birth certificates. I'm talking about social security cards, IDs, medical records, all important documents that are going to aid you in your transition that you know at some point you're going to need. Start gathering those documents because it's going to make life a lot easier once you actually get ready to leave. And if there ever comes a point in time where you have to leave abruptly, these documents need to be somewhere accessible. You need to be able to have those. And third, I want you to create a stabilization plan. Where are you going to go? What resources do you have available to you in your area? What support system do you already have that you know you'll be able to rely on once you make this transition? Because leaving chaos doesn't start by walking out the door. It starts by preparing your life, this transition, preparing yourself so that when you leave, you can actually sustain it. What we don't want is for you to put all of this work in to transition and to leave this situation, and then you end up having to go back. We want you to be able to sustain this leave so that you're not someone who becomes financially dependent on another person again. There's an end goal here, and we have to stick to the plan by any means necessary. Now, I just gave you the first 3 things that I want you to focus on right now. Not tomorrow, not next week, not next month. These are things that you can start doing right now. Now, I did create a stabilization guide that you can purchase on KDP, or you can get it on Google Play. It's $9.99. For $10, you can start to map out what stability is going to look like for yourself and your children once you make this leave. Because again, we don't want you to have to go back. You don't want to go back. We want you to have a plan in place so that when you leave and you're gone, you could be gone for good. And if this video spoke to you in any way, make sure you subscribe to my channel, because this space is for the women who are rebuilding their lives after chaos and learning to survive it.